I put in at 5 o'clock, followed the shoreline, and had my first fish released at about 5:15. Early in the morning, in the gray light, I like to fish as close to the shore as I can. And while it may seem like I'm not that close, you can hear the waves rolling up on the shore. Then the biggest problem here, you just have to be prepared. Every now and then you get caught with a wave and you'll have to surf it in. But early like this, when it's real dark, I've caught some of my biggest fish along the boiler rocks like this. And for me, it's always a great way to start the day. After I'm through on the shoreline, then I go ahead and work the middle grounds. And that is, they're generally one single stringers. Sometimes they'll hold fish. I'm going to look for birds there to really tell me where they're at. I didn't have any luck there today. Eventually I ended up in the kelp paddies, where I get right up in the top of the forest, and I'll fish the little pockets and the little holes. I'm using a weedless swim bait, and in many cases I can just swim it right across the top and they'll boil up on it. Today there were a lot of small fish in there and they were real aggressive. In the past I have caught some really nice calico bass there. Eventually I transitioned and moved on from there. Got that one just crawling it over a kelp. When I'm transitioning, because of the speed of my kayak, which is generally pretty slow, I go ahead and troll a swim bait on a light weedless lead head, one that has the line keeper on the front so that it doesn't get caught in the kelps. I'll troll into the current, and I'll kind of slalom along the kelp stringers. When I do catch a fish this way, because the direction of the current, I can go ahead and let my kayak drift back through the zone where I just caught a fish, and I'll typically get back into those biting fish and I'll pick up several more that way. Almost 18 inches. I eventually ended up in out of the kelp, but on the edge of the kelp, in from 50, 60, 70, maybe as deep as 80 feet, where I'll find these rocks that look like they're holding fish, and I'll use my fish finder and I'll vertically drop down. A swim bait works, a big heavy one like a 2 ounce. Today I was using a tube jig. I think at that depth it doesn't really matter as much. The hardest part for me is keeping my kayak right where I need to keep it, because you got the current and you'll have a little bit of wind, and you really got to bomb them rocks just right in order to get bit. But when it does, there's usually a big one laying underneath there. Today I caught my biggest fish of the session underneath one of those rocks. It was a good day. I ended up catching 10 calico to make 4 legals. It's been like that pretty much all season long. "18 inches, look at that face, all lit up." Today I was fishing with a pair of Komodo SS low profile fishing reels. I have 50-pound braid on them, and I'm using 20-pound fluorocarbon. The length of the reel, maybe 10 feet is all that I need. I'm using the Guide Select rod. I've been using these reels for a couple years now. I used the prototype before that, a couple years before that. I really put them through hell, and then when I get home, all I do is I just put a little soap on them and rinse them off. Real good combination. The lure today I was using, again, was the weedless jig head. I like throwing it with a 5-inch swim bait. There was a time in July when I dropped down to a 3.5. Pick up more fish that way, but they do seem to be a little bit smaller. That's all I've got for this week. The next scene up will be a landing where I flipped over in the surf. It's pretty entertaining to watch. Hopefully there's something there that you can learn. And then I'm going to follow that up with a few more scenes from this week where I caught fish. And you guys have a good week. This is John Poplock saying goodbye. There's one. That's a nice one too. Caught that one on a 5.5-inch swim bait.